Hi everyone and welcome to this 15-year anniversary live stream of GLM. Welcome everyone, thank you very much for joining us. I'm Andy Bensley and along with some of my colleagues we'd like to take you through some of the history of GLM as well as kind of where we are today. For those of you who aren't aware, GLM is our Genelec loudspeaker management software, and coupled with our smart active monitors gives you the ability to automatically calibrate your sound monitors to your listening environment. So what does that mean? It means that your system will be optimized and give you the best possible chance of your projects translating to other spaces and other systems. So in that 15 years, we've come a long way. So be it calibrating stereo systems, 5.1 systems, 7.1 systems, all the way up to immersive systems, Dolby Atmos systems, even experimental systems that you may see in academia and in universities, we can accommodate over 80 loudspeakers. So an incredibly scalable system. But at the heart of it, I suppose we've been linked to the way that people have been working for the past 15 years. So the development of GLM has kind of gone hand in hand with the way that you, our customers, have been working. We could see 15 years ago that there was a real need for monitors to adapt to their environment as people started to move away from commercial facilities and the kind of more traditional studio environments. They were kind of working in environments that were, I don't know, maybe less than well suited to audio reproduction, repurposed office spaces, classrooms with a bit of acoustic treatment, or even taking the events of last year with the pandemic where people have been forced to work at home. We've seen GLM and sound systems kind of go hand in hand with that, where people have forced to kind of change their way of working and have to adapt to these new environments. So coming up today, we are not only going to take a look at a little bit of the history of GLM, but also what is happening today. Now, today is the launch of the latest version of GLM, GLM 4.1. And I've got to say there are some significant updates within this. This isn't your typical 0.1 release. There's some amazing stuff that's going on under the hood. A fundamental redesign of the kind of the engine behind GLM. As well as some awesome features that are going to really kind of take your monitoring to the next level. So I'm going to be joined by my colleague, Marcel Schechter, who's going to take you through a deep dive of some of the new features of GLM 4.1. And also, this live stream is completely interactive. So depending on what platform you're on, please feel free to drop your questions in the comments below. And we will have a team of Genelec experts online ready to respond to your questions, everything related to SAM and GLM. What's more, at the end of the live stream, I'm going to be taking part in a live Q&A. Marcel's going to join me for that. But it wouldn't be a Genelec live stream without a giveaway. And have we got an awesome giveaway for you? Not one, but two lucky winners could be in with a chance of winning a pair of Genelec Raw 8330 monitors, or your choice of subwoofers. It could be a 7360 or 7350, as well as a GLM kit and a brand new GLM 4 t-shirt. So information about how you can join in with that competition will be coming up later on. But I think now is a good time to join Marcel to give us a rundown of GLM 4.1. Are you there, Marcel?
Thanks a lot, Andy. Yes,
Awesome.
This is Marcel.
Thank you, Marcel.
From Germany talking to you. Yeah, and I'm really glad that somehow, I can give you a short walkthrough through the new 4.1 release. Of course, I cannot cover everything in detail, but I think we can simply check out one of the main features and the main improvements. And this is really interesting stuff. Yes, let's simply dive into it. The thing you see now should be, somehow, you should already know this if you're a user of GLM. Otherwise, of course, you could become a user if you, for example, simply take part in our contest and win this pair of monitors. This is how GLM looks like right from the start. If you have connected your monitors using CAT cables to the network adapter, which is part of the GLM kit, and then all of your speakers show up in this small box as you can see here, as unplaced. It's just a stereo setup for me now, a pair of 8341s. And you can, first of all, select from different layout styles. So my choice would be stereo. Feel free to go for 5.1 if you're doing surround, or of course, this is really interesting at the moment, go for immersive setups like 514 or even 714. You can see this is, for example, why we now use this new design with the hexagons, simply because it's scalable. And now you see there is a lot of space for all of your monitors. For me, it's just the stereo one. The moment I click on the speaker, it will somehow emit a noise. You could hear this. And it starts blinking, and then I can simply place it in this. It was the right one. And this is the left one. So for stereo, this is pretty straightforward. I will confirm this layout, and then we are on the next page. Yeah, on the next page, we can start somehow digging into what's new in GLM 4.1. First of all, I have to say, of course, it's possible that you can make GLM speak your language. We have now 10 language options available. Perhaps there will be more soon. At the moment, you can choose from these languages. I will stay with English for that one. From time to time, we switch to Chinese simply to make sure that we find everything without reading it. So this is really helpful. What is also helpful is the tooltips category, enabled by default, which makes it possible that you simply can point with your mouse on any parameter and it shows a small text box giving you some additional information, what's going on there. So it's really useful for all of the guys who don't want to use, the GLM manual, which of course is also available. So one of the new things you can find here on this screen is so-called group sensitivity. And this makes it possible that you can match the level of different groups. And this is cool. It's independently regarding, the volume fader. So for example, you are having a digital group with AES EBU playing, and you have an analog group. Of course, there's usually a huge level difference or sensitivity difference. The digital group, for example, could be at -24 and the analog one at 0. Then you can use this group sensitivity to match the levels of two groups. So really useful. And Andy just gave us a short introduction that a few things are really highly interesting from the sonical side, so how things sound and how things have improved. So this one, extended phase linearity, will show up if you are using the ones. So this is a new mode available for our 3-way coaxial monitors. The recent one, so 8351A is not covered here, just to let you know, but all of the others of the ones are offering you this extended phase linearity. It's on by default, and that means that we now have a complete phase linearity down to 100 Hertz. So the input to output latency is absolutely the same, down to 100 Hertz, which is really cool because this gives you an even better stereo image. You will have an even improved off-axis response. And of course, it's really, similar to nature. Because, for example, if someone's playing the double bass, of course, the frequencies, start coming from the source at the same time and there's no delay. What's even more interesting to know is that we achieve this with it's just a slight increase of delay. So usually, for example, 8351s have approximately 3 milliseconds of delay. If you now switch this to on, it will be approximately 4 milliseconds more, but nothing more. So it's still absolutely usable for all types of application. If you are somehow, for example, into tracking some, really fast metal stuff and the guitarist asks you for the lowest latency you can give him, you can turn this off. Otherwise, for mixing or for simply enjoying music, definitely try this out because it's really cool and it sounds really, really well. It also helps because some of our 2-way monitors already have this extended phase linearity down to 100 Hertz. So if you have a mixed system, it can also be really useful to turn this to on. Yeah, great. Now to the next screen. And there is the new heart or the new soul of GLM 4.1. And this is why Andy told us somehow this is more than a regular 0.1 release, because this one now features AutoCal 2. You can simply select it. And this is a complete new generation of algorithm that we are using to give you the best frequency response for your room and your positioning at your listening spot. And yeah, let's simply, look into some of the details. What changed with AutoCal 2? AutoCal 2 somehow uses the detailed information we have for every single speaker, because of course we measured them under controlled conditions, for example in an anechoic chamber. And now this algorithm is able to somehow better distinguish between direct sound coming from your speakers and reflected sound, which is influenced by your room. So it somehow knows better now what's going on in your room, especially in rooms that are challenging or more lively, or for example don't have that much acoustical treatment. So it's becoming even smarter because it now is able to realize what is the room doing and what is coming from your speakers. We then have the option that we use parametric filters as we did before, but now with even more flexibility. For example, we can now make use of positive gain as well. And yes, before you now start telling me, you guys always told us, don't use positive gain. Yes, that's still correct. And of course, physics still stay on version 1.0. But I hope I can tell you why we are doing this and how you can do it in a responsible way. It's absolutely still correct that if you have a narrow notch, for example, at 60, 70, 80 hertz, so in the bass range, caused by a backwall reflection, for example, it wouldn't make any sense to boost this frequency range because sound is emitted omnidirectionally in this range. So if you boost it, direct sound will be boosted, but also the reflection will be boosted. And at your listening position, you still will have the cancellation. So of course, we still don't do this. What we also don't do is boost anything in the higher mids or the high frequencies, because what's happening there, if you're having a dip there, it's absolutely highly dependable on the location your head is at the moment. So even a minimum movement of your head can cause an absolutely different dip. So we also don't use positive gain there. Where do we use it? We use it in the lower mid-range. So especially in the range, for example, between 100 and 300 hertz, because there it can help us. And if you use a really, wide Q factor, it can really help you to achieve an overall better tonal balance. And especially you can have less the effect of that the system sounds brighter after calibration. Because through the years, a lot of our experts and product specialists always had the task that they had been at studios, we did the calibration, and then we started listening to it. And some of the customers simply told us, now it's really precise and transparent, and I can really know and hear what's going on, but I'm missing a little bit of the warmth and of the, the bass range. And then usually what we applied was simply a high shelf filter with a really gentle roll off towards the high frequencies. And now AutoCal 2 is taking these subjective impressions into account, and is possible to delivering you this performance right out of the box. So it's a little bit like having someone like Andy or others of our team with you. AutoCal knows exactly how to adjust it, that you don't get this brightening anymore. If you're interested, especially in more of the positioning stuff, please check out our monitor setup guide. It's really worth looking into it, especially if it's about room acoustics. Yeah, this is one of the main things AutoCal 2 can do for you. What's even also good to know is that it's way faster than AutoCal 1. So the code is completely new. We're now using 64-bit. And this makes it possible, for example, to have a 2.1 system calibrated within approximately 40 seconds. So it's around 4 times faster than AutoCal 1. And of course, this is really important if you are having a large system like immersive stuff. So we will save several minutes of calibration time just by using this algorithm. It's cloud only in 4.1. So you will realize if you select this, you should be online, simply to make sure that you're always using the most recent algorithm. If you want to do this without internet connection, you can still use, of course, AutoCal 1, which of course is still a good one, and you can install it locally to your computer, and then you are absolutely independent from internet connections. Yes, and another thing we should talk about is the symmetrical EQ and individual EQ, because this also changed. To sum it up in short, before it was the case that individual EQ, as the name is saying, meant every speaker gets an individual EQ setting, so that each speaker has the perfect frequency response for your listening position. And symmetrical somehow made sure that we use a compromise. So both speakers are using exactly the same filters, simply to make sure that the overall stereo imaging and things like the phantom center are even more precise. With the symmetrical mode we have now in 4.1, we combine the best of both worlds. So we are using individual EQs below 300, and above 300 it's symmetrical. So it's possible, for example, if a speaker is closer to a corner, that you get the better response for the bass range, but still having, all of the advantages of really precise phantom center by using symmetrical EQs in the area above 300 Hertz. So really good to know. Usually now I would measure, but I don't want to bother you with some sweeps. So I just open this one for you. Yeah, this is how it looks like if you are ready with measuring. And this is somehow our window that we can use for controlling the complete system. So it's a monitor controller, and we can check out all settings in detail there. First of all, I want to show you how you can make sure that you are using the latest firmware in your speakers, because this is really important with this new release. You should check if your firmware is up to date. How do we do this? We select here in this one, info. So just to tell this to you, this simply means you can select what's happening the moment you click on the speakers. So I want to see the info panel, so I'll select info. And if I now click on my speaker, I can see a lot of information, including, for example, temperature, stuff like that. But on the bottom, you can see up to date. If this is not up to date, it would say update, and then you simply click on it, and then the firmware will be updated. Just do this with all of your speakers, including the subwoofers, and please don't forget to check the network adapter as well. This is a little more tricky because it's this small symbol on the bottom left, and you can see this one has not been updated by Mr. Schechter. He could do this right now. I won't. Yeah? So adapter and all speakers should be running the latest firmware. The most interesting thing, of course, is to check out what AutoCAL 2 has been doing. Let's look at this speaker. First of all, you can see, as you already know, red is the reality. So the reality in my room is not really good, as you can see. I would never be able to mix in a room like this, because you can see at 130 Hertz, it's approximately 20 dBs too much, simply because it's a small room and modal influences. You might see there's one feature a lot of people have asked us to bring it back. It is back. If you scroll through it, you can read the frequency, and of course you can read the gain. So GLM is doing really helpful stuff in my room, because as you can see, the blue curve are the filters applied by AutoCAL 2, and this makes the green one look really neutral and really linear, which is fine. What you can see right from the start, for example, we don't use positive gain for this one, because somehow this would be a problem. My listening area wouldn't be that wide. I could not move my head that freely if we would do something in this area. If we have a look at the other speaker, you can see this one is showing one of these typical notches below 100. Actually, there are two of them. And now you see, of course, it's not possible to completely get rid of these, but the overall balance gets better. By now applying, this is absolutely the automatic setting at the moment, it applies a positive notch filter. If this is available, you will always see a plus here. And it applies this filter at 100 Hertz, giving you 4 dB boost. So for example, we make also sure that we don't boost at a too high level, because as you know, the amplifier needs a lot of power. If you add 3 dBs, this means you have to double the power of the amplifier. So for the smaller models, it's maximum 3 dBs. And for the more powerful models, it's up to 6 dBs. And if you also know that we don't use a smoothing of, for example, 1/3 of an octave, because we want to see everything in detail. if you would look at this now with 1/3 of an octave smoothing, it definitely would be better with this gain applied compared to without. And as I told you, this is something I would have done manually before because it would have been a little too bright. And now we can see that high shelf 2 is applied with -1 dB, starting at 300 Hertz. So this is, as I told you, to avoid brightening of systems. AutoCAL 2 is really taking a closer look to this area and adjusting the overall balance that it, from our point of view, sounds really, really cool. Of course, you can still adjust everything manually. Just go for it. You can edit all of these parameters to your needs. I would also always suggest to start with the shelvings just to keep the overall balance. If you want to do this even easier for the complete system, especially, for example, for an immersive system, you can use our sound character profiler. It can be found in group presets. And this now also is offering you some amount of positive gain if all of the speakers are capable of doing this. For example, if an older model would be part of this group, it could be that this is not available. But then you can do it as you had been used to it. So simply, for example, if you want to have more bass in the system or more warmth, just do something like that and just lower the mid and the high frequencies. Yeah. But with recent models, you will have some amount of positive gain here as well. For example, I can just add this. And now this frequency response would be applied to all speakers in the system. So if I now go to confirm and check out my frequency response here, I can see there's now two filters showing that filter is controlled by sound character profiler. And so these values are controlled from the settings you just did. So really useful to adjust a complete system within a few seconds. Please always make use of the groups. So if you are ready with one setting, you can simply duplicate the group and try out a different setting, for example. I did something like I wanted to listen to the extended phase linearity on and off, and I simply did this with 2 groups. And then I can switch these, and instantly the playback will use this setting. You can also use these groups for different positions. For example, one group directly at your desk or where you are sitting, and the other one for your friends having a party or the producer sitting behind you, to make sure that at their position there's also the right frequency response. There's also one thing to say: if you do multi-point measurings, now AutoCAL 2 is handling this even better because it's always a compromise of these different positions, and because we are now able to somehow do the time of flight even more precise, because as I told you before, we can distinguish better between direct and reflected sound. These multiple points are now somehow combining in a better way. So even if you're having closer distance between one point and your speaker, it will give you a really consistent result. Just one look for me, what I should cover. Yes, of course, now we are in the back for good category, I would call it. So features that had been there before, and now they are back. For example, we can now once again set a maximum level restriction. I will just click set to current level, and now this one is fixed and can't go above 18. Really useful if you're using ASEBU, and for example, your source is playing at full output, which makes sense because then you are using the perfect resolution for the speakers. But then you should be really careful in getting too high. And if you want to go for a party, then simply click on remove, and then everything is possible again. Also back for good is the level panel. It's important to know this will only be visible if you're using a volume controller and if a GLM is not active. For example, you have Pro Tools open or any other DAW open, and you adjust something with your volume controller, this level panel will be visible and show you the actual level. You can adjust how long it should be visible and where it should be located. So also really helpful. It's now also possible to use MIDI devices. So you can simply enable your interface or your MIDI device just select which one you want to use, and then you can assign functions of GLM to MIDI controllers. So also, I think, a really useful feature. You can also, if you like, to go for a really compact view of this one. So it's, for example, possible if you just put it that way. Then you will have all the controls like volume and switching groups, and of course mute, dim, and the preset levels. But it's not covering anything. So also useful. The behavior of the volume fader also now changed. It will be the same for all groups, which is also, I think, really cool, because from time to time with the older version, there could have been, jumps in volume. For example, if you had been working on another group. Now, as you can see, it's always the same. When I'm switching groups, it remains on that level. If you want to have a difference between two groups, just remember, you can go for Edit, and then what I told you right in the beginning, just I use this group sensitivity to do so. So you can perfectly match groups and make it even easier. Yeah, and I think this is enough for the first, to give you a first impression. Of course, check out the manual if you want to get support. You can always contact us at support@genelec.com. You can also simply export your complete setup file to your desktop, and then you can send this file to us. And we sometimes also ask you to add some photos, just because it's interesting for us to find out, for example, what is causing dips and stuff like that. So simply make use of it, and we are really looking forward to all of your questions. And I'm pretty sure that we'll do really in-depth videos and tutorials. So, this is just to give you the first overview. So thanks a lot for your attention, and I'm giving back to Andy now.
That's great. Thank you so much, Marcel. That's a great first look at GLM 4.1. And as I said, there's a ton of new stuff in there. It's not your typical 0.1 update. And we're going to dive into a number of your questions shortly. Because I can see there's a lot of activity in the chat there, a huge number of questions. So thank you so much for getting involved and contributing to this live stream. It's greatly appreciated. So competition time. As I said previously, it's the 15th anniversary of GLM, so we are marking this with a fantastic giveaway for you to win a pair of 8330s in fantastic raw finish, 7350 or 7360, depending on the size of your room and application, a GLM kit and a GLM t-shirt. And to get involved, it's so straightforward. All you have to do is send or post a picture or a video on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, and just let us know how your monitoring setup could be improved by GLM. Once you've posted that, please include the hashtag GLM and hashtag Genelec 15 anniversary. That's hashtag Genelec 15 anniversary. The two winners will be selected by the 31st of August. So you have the 31st of August to enter this competition, and winners will be chosen after the 31st, and they'll be announced in our August Instagram live. So if you head over to genelec.com/GLM 15 anniversary, that's genelec.com/GLM 15 anniversary. All the details are there of how you can enter, and you'll be able to check out the prizes. So good luck, everyone. So now I think it's time to dive into Q&A. So if I can invite Marcel back. You there, Marcel? Amazing.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so ready for some questions?
You're right, Eddie. A lot of stuff's going on the chat. It's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think that's what one thing that we're abundantly aware of is how active our community is, especially amongst GLM users. It's great to have your feedback and for people to be so passionate about some of the features that are included, and we don't take this lightly. I mean, this is all stuff that we use day in, day out, and we do understand how important that some of these features are to you. So please keep giving us your feedback, and we really do appreciate your questions. So thank you.
I think actually, a lot of the features you now see in 4.1 are there because of field feedback. So because you and all of our users asked for it, and this is the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm just reading through it. Just a second. Too many screens here in Germany at the moment. Man, so many things are going on here. Okay, cool. Yeah, there's one question I think we can answer directly. Will I need to recalibrate after the update? Andy, what would we answer?
yeah, so I would recommend that you recalibrate your system. I know sometimes it's very tempting to hold on to that calibration that sounded so good, but we would definitely encourage you to recalibrate your system and make use of AutoCal 2. I mean, because this is one of the major changes to 4.1. The whole architecture and the whole means of the calibration has changed and has moved on significantly. But you can you can duplicate your group and recalibrate, so you will be able to compare between the two calibrations. And I would be absolutely, I would actually absolutely recommend that you go down the recalibration route when you move to 4.1. Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. There's one, or I think several questions going on because of 8351A. So, Andy, I think we can simply speak openly. What is the problem with 8351A? So what is not available for this model compared to the others of the ones?
So I suppose the two kind of headline features that won't kind of migrate over to the 51A will be extended phase linearity and the addition of positive gain. Unfortunately, it's a very different architecture involved with the 51. The 51 was the first family member of the ones. And subsequently, as 8341 and 8351 came along, there were some changes within the designs that warranted an update and a refresh to 8351. Hence why we have 8351B, and then 8351A, 31A, and now 61A. So that family with the new set of features will be the 31A, 41A, 51B, and 61A.
And a few of the people already asked about, the smaller SAM systems like 8320, 8330. I think we can simply tell you you can use positive gain with these smaller systems as well. As I told you, of course, we made sure that you don't apply too much positive gain. So it's limited to 3 dB for these smaller models. And of course, there's also no extended phase linearity here. This is just exclusively for the 3-way coaxial monitors. But overall, we can tell you that all models from the SAM series, so including the really old ones like 8240 or 8250, so almost 15 years old, are absolutely can be used and are supported with, some restrictions regarding positive gain, of course. But otherwise, you can use GLM 4.1 to control these systems as well. And of course, you can still mix all of these models for larger systems. This is not a problem.
I think that's a huge part of GLM and SAM as an ecosystem, that we're not actively excluding any models from being included in a system. So that if you have combinations of 8200 series, 8300 series, the ones, 1200 series, they can still exist and be calibrated and optimized, but to varying levels depending on the architecture and features available. We're not kind of excluding anything here. It's important that we include as many models as we can that kind of go back over that 15-year period.
Absolutely. There's also one question, Andy, we can answer, of course. Do users need a new hardware? So is a new interface needed or a new microphone? It's easy to answer, no.
Absolutely not. No.
So it's still using the same hardware. Yeah.
Yep, same network adapter, same microphone,
Exactly. Yeah.
and all of this kind of works in exactly the same way. Absolutely.
Yeah. And don't be afraid, some of the dealers simply still call it the GLM 2 kit, for example, or some named it GLM 3 kit. Perhaps few of them named it GLM 4 kit, but it's still, the same adapter and the same microphone. So no need to upgrade any hardware. So just have to check out more questions. I'm sorry, it's so many of them coming in.
They're coming in thick and fast.
Absolutely.
We had a question earlier regarding 8351s and room, using them in a small room.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
I can speak through experience with this because I am currently in a very small room with 8351s, and the answer is one of the kind of the core design elements of the ones was the ability to reduce the listening distance and work in this ultra near field manner. So kind of working at very, very, very close listening distances and having a three-way point source design where everything hits you at the same time. I mean, that's kind of one of the fundamental elements of the ones is that the listening distance can be greatly reduced. You can use them at greater listening distances, but you can also listen incredibly close. And this means that even in a very small room, you can still accommodate a relatively large set of monitors. Combine that with GLM, and you're in pretty good shape. You can mitigate a lot of the issues that you would typically have by employing a large monitor in a small room. Kind of Marcel's in a similar position. You're using on 41s
Yes.
in your space?
Correct.
So again, listening distance can be greatly reduced, but in terms of that low frequency extension, I'm in a room that is very small, 2.4 meters by 3 meters, 3.5 meters. And I've got 8351s with a 7370. And GLM is really helping to divine the system and dial it into a point where any decisions I make in the low end here do translate. And it works very, very well. I'll just see a comment from a friend of mine, Neil Pickles, who's also in a very small room with 51Bs and 7370. It's very short minimum distance and again, working very near field. And like I say, if you calibrate the system, you're going to be in pretty good shape.
And actually, you have seen my real response before because this
Yes.
had been my room. Yeah. And as you said, I can absolutely mix in here. So this is absolutely possible. Yeah. And as Andy said, simply, think about it. This is one of the main advantages, of course, of the ones. You can be so close to them if you like to. Yeah. So you will get the high three-way resolution, even in the most compact rooms. Yeah. Even in OB vans, for example, we had achieved a really, really good performance.
Yeah,
So-
that was in the early days of the 51s. I saw a lot of them going into OB trucks where you had an incredibly short listening distance, and it was in environments where space is an absolute premium. It really makes sense to kind of look towards the ones because you can work incredibly close to them.
There had been a question, Andy, also any updates in the flow if you are using 8351Bs with the W371. First of all, this is our adaptive woofer system, and this has somehow its own part of calibrations, so-called woofer cal, and of course this also had been updated with AutoCal 2. So, yeah.
Yes, that's right, and also the whole calibration process will be sped up as well as a result of AutoCal 2. There's no doubt about that. So like we were saying, with larger systems, immersive systems, that time will be greatly reduced, and it would encourage you to kind of calibrate more, kind of make more physical tweaks in the room in terms of positioning, aiming of the monitors, recalibrate the system and compare, because that's really those comparisons are where you can really dial in the results and really improve the system.
There's one question, and I know this question. There's someone asking about, does it matter where I exactly place monitors or subwoofers on the grid? So, for example, if my subwoofer is located more to the left side and it's placed on the right side, does this matter? No, it doesn't. The grid should simply help you to somehow get an overview for your system. And there's just one thing, for example, if you're using AS-EBU and you're placing a stereo pair, one speaker to the left, one speaker to the right, then the flag for the channels A and B will be set, for example, left is A and write is B. You can change this later, but this will be the default setting. Same, for example, for surrounds left and right. But otherwise, this grid is simply, to help you setting up your system and to configure everything and to later know which monitor to click if you want to adjust something. It don't have to be, precisely as your room layout. This is not needed.
Yep, absolutely. I've seen a question here from David. What are the major improvements in GLM 4.1? Just a performance improvement with 64-bit? Well, one thing I would, if you've joined us slightly later, David, I would go back and check this live stream out on YouTube. We'll be reposting this. You'll have a chance to check it out at a later date. But also, I mean, I'd just like to say, with having had the opportunity to use this in anger out in the field with customers over the past month or so, I've noticed a significant improvement in the quality of the calibrations. Not just in terms of having a flat linear response, but in terms of some of the tweaks that Marcel or I or some of our colleagues would intuitively make to a system. Kind of being done immediately, which is kind of, does it mean that me and Marcel are out of a job? Possibly. But the sonic improvement straight away of just playing back reference material and it immediately being familiar. And there's occasions with some of the ones where this extended phase linearity is profound. Definition in vocals, a kind of a real sense of realism and solidity in the stereo image. I mean, what I would suggest is if you have the opportunity to download 4.1 and recalibrate your system, please do it and let us know your feedback. But personally, the results that I've experienced in my own listening room, my own studio and customer studios have been pretty significant. It's pretty exciting.
There's one question that I seem to have missed. I did not miss it. It's just not that easy to answer, but of course I'll try to reply to it. Someone is asking, can the sound character profiler, Andy, be used to emulate a smaller speaker system, such as a car or a home AV system? So simply, I think cut off is what he's asking for. Can this be done? Or how would you do this?
I suppose the answer is I have previously had customers ask me to try and profile their systems, believe it or not, to try and copy a frequency response of their systems. In short, there are no presets as such in there to copy classic, well-known small boxes. But you could certainly tweak the response to give you kind of more of a sense of a reduced frequency response, if you like, by filters. In all honesty, from our point of view, we're not really interested in kind of emulating other systems. Exactly. Our goal is to try and work with the environment that you're working in to get our monitors back to a linear neutral response. We've been in the business of producing reference loudspeakers for over 40 years. So when we design and measure our monitors, we do so in our factory in anechoic conditions, so we know how that system should perform. The real goal is getting somewhere back to neutral when you're in the real world, when they're out in the field, and that's the job of work. That's certainly something that Marcel and I encounter on a day-to-day basis. So tools like GLM help us to get closer to that neutral reproduction, which is one of our cornerstones.
Because I think we all agree that you have to use some kind of reference. Yeah. Otherwise, you won't be able to do a mix that will translate well to other rooms and other systems. Of course, I think this question is aiming for, I just want to try how does it, for example, a bass sound if it's played back and a system is cutting off at 80, for example, instead of 40. Yeah? You can do this, for example, by simply, selecting a low-cut filter for this one. Yeah? This is possible. But as Andy said, the main aim should always be to have this somehow sonic reference, and then you will realize then your mixes really translate well and on a really high level. Every time you're using a speaker that is somehow limited in frequency response, it will be way harder to make this work on other systems and in other rooms, because, for example, you simply don't know what's going on. If a speaker stops at 80 hertz and you are doing some electronic stuff or things like that, there can be things happening in the lower bass and you would never be aware of it if you don't use a full range system, for example. So this is really important. And GLM, I think, really is giving you the opportunity to get closer to this reference level, even in challenging rooms. For example, my room is challenging, and I think Andy's as well, although he's done some really good acoustical treatment. But yeah, of course, we always tell people, do the treatment as good as possible, because if it comes to the time domain, of course, this is the only way to do it. Use absorbers and use bass traps. But for all the things coming later, for example, getting rid of a room mode at 60 hertz or 70 hertz, you will need so much material. It will be so expensive. And then somehow GLM can really help you to get, this latest bit out of your room. And that's really useful.
Yeah, that idea of it kind of not being a silver bullet to solve all problems, but to be able to use it in conjunction with acoustic treatment, with proper placement as well, that makes a huge difference. I mean, you could save yourself a hell of a lot of money by just experimenting with placement. There's many times I've been in studios where I've talked to people who've talked about buying expensive stands or kind of buying expensive treatment. But starting with moving the monitoring is probably one of the biggest things that you can do. Experiment, find a good area where your calibration system, your acoustic treatment has to do the least amount of work, and then build from there. That can be a really important point that sometimes is missed, that they're placed in positions that look correct. But I suppose there's a balance to be struck with all of this. First and foremost, the room has to work. Like Marcel says, if you're going to reduce the volume of the room by 2/3 by adding bass trap in and not have any space to work, then is that the right way to go? Or is kind of looking to solve those issues in the time domain with absorption, and then looking at something like GLM to take care of those room modes is also a smart way to go as well. So it's really horses for courses depending on your situation.
There's one question I would like to answer regarding ISS. This is our intelligent signal sensing. So this can be used that, for example, for a certain period of time, there is no signal on it. The speaker goes to standby, and the moment you hit play, it will be on again. And someone is asking, this is not working for him with AS-EBU. And yes, this is the truth. If you have a clocking signal active on your AS-EBU system, it won't get active. It will still be somehow awake because it sees the clocking signal. Same is the case if you have GLM open and running. It also will never fall to ISS simply because there's communication going on. If you want to have an easy option to simply turn off your speakers the moment you close GLM, just go for this. You can use this power options, and then you can simply select start monitors with GLM and shut them down with GLM, and then absolutely it's attached. And the moment you close GLM, the monitors are also turned off automatically. Yeah. This is the thing about ISS. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for all your questions there, guys. If you would like to continue asking any questions, I believe our team are going to be online for another 10 minutes or so everyone can get involved and still continue to send their questions through. Just like to remind you that the competition is now live. I'm sure in the chat there's been numerous posts to and links to the webpage on the Genelec site. It's genelec.com GLM /GLM 15 anniversary. But also a really important one for you to check out is just genelec.com /GLM, where you'll be able to download the latest version of GLM 4.1 and try it out for yourselves. But if you have any questions at all, please feel free to put them in the chat. And also, you can reach out to support@genelec.com. support@genelec.com if you've got any questions at all, and our team will also be on hand there to assist with any questions Genelec related. So again, I'd just like to thank everybody for joining us today. We really do appreciate it, and thank you so much for getting involved. And I'd like to thank Marcel for his awesome deep dive into GLM 4.1.
Thank you so much.
As well as to all our experts online and
Exactly.
our production team. Thank you for supporting us with this. And join us next time for another GLM or another Genelec live stream. Thank you very much, everyone. Take care.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye. Thank you so much. Bye.